Okay, Shady Side. Yeah, Shady Side. We shop kind of near there for our grocery shop. We go to the East End Food Co-op, which is in Wilkinsburg, so that's kind of down that way. But I'm there like all the time. Was there yesterday grocery shopping for this. All right, well, welcome. This is the December monthly cooking class. Those of you guys that are watching virtually at home, or those of you guys here live, I do these once a month in the membership. We pick recipes straight from the bundle that comes out on the 5th. And this month it was the baklava, which is some of you guys might be familiar with it, some of you guys might not, but it is a sweet bread that usually Slovaks eat on Christmas Eve. And but if you've never had it before, this recipe is so versatile that it's delicious to make, you know, even if you want to make these as rolls, or I'm going to tell you like a bunch of tips and tricks of how to use the dough. So it's really just a great recipe for anytime you're doing some kind of like bread that you're looking for. But I'll kind of go into a little bit more about specifically the Slovak way, but then all the alternatives that you can make. So we are going to make that because that's kind of a tradition for mine on the holidays. And then we're making pierogies as well, which Pittsburgh is very much such a pierogi treasure trove. We have the Pittsburgh Pirates, which are a baseball team, but they actually have one of their mascots are pierogies, and they do a pierogi race. So there's usually pierogies of they have different, I think, ball caps that they wear, and they race around the baseball field throughout the game. So pierogies are just very much Pittsburgh. We have a huge Polish Slovenian treasure trove here. There's actually a hill in Pittsburgh called Polish Hill. So it's very much like pierogi festivals and the whole thing. So we usually have pierogies around the holidays. I don't always have them on Christmas, but we're making it this year for Christmas for something different. And, usually it's like sauerkraut, and I make our mushroom soup, which I have on the channel, which you could put sauerkraut in the soup. So it would be, I know for us, I'll make the mushroom soup. We're going to have the pierogies, the bambalki, and then I'll generally make a really nice holiday salad with maybe some pomegranates and some other vegetables that are mixed up in there to add some greens, because there's not a lot of greens in what I'm going to show you today, but you definitely could add them on. This is definitely more of like a holiday meal because we are going to use a little bit of flour for this. But, for my channel, I try to give you guys recipes that fit everyone's lifestyle. So not everyone comes to a plant-based lifestyle to lose weight. Some people come to gain weight. Some people are trying to get their kids on board, or family members, or maybe their weight's fine, but they're working on some other blood tests or different things. So there are so many different avenues, but my goal is to make sure that you guys can enjoy being plant-based throughout all the seasons, including the holidays. So that's why we posted our cookies bundles that I posted on Facebook. And we've done a couple other things like more holiday dishes. So we do eat like this generally around the holidays. And then I kind of go back to eating more like our ebook, simpler meals, making sure I'm getting the daily dozen the majority of the time. So Marcia said, can you help me with the lasagna roll up? Can't get the noodle either tough or falling apart. A lot of the times with bean pasta, you have to be really careful about the cook time. They cook, it just depends. If you're going to use chickpea lasagna noodles, I probably would cook them less than the time on the box before you're going to roll them. So al dente usually is the best. If for some reason it's not working with that noodle, you pretty much can make a lasagna soup out of it, even kind of doctor it up that way if it's kind of falling apart. Or you can even just make it a regular lasagna if that's giving you trouble. There's a couple different hacks. The roll-ups there's a little bit of finesse that goes into that one. Sometimes they can be a little delicate. The only things that I did a couple of things ahead of time, because as you can tell, some of these recipes take a little bit longer of a time. So if you're going to make the bambalki, I do suggest you start it the morning of. It is around a 2-hour proof time for the dough to rise. and I'm going to talk about this dough. It's my favorite dough I've ever made because it's so easy. And if you're somebody who struggles with like your dough rising a lot and like killing the yeast, this is like a perfect one to try because there is no temperature thermometers. You're using cold plant milk for this recipe. You're not going to kill off anything. It's pretty much like, I almost feel like it's like a dummy-proof dough because it just like turns out each and every time wonderful. So I did do that this morning after I got up. Now you can proof it longer than 2 hours. It does not have to, you do not have to set a timer and like watch it meticulously. If you're around 2 hours, perfect. If you are more than 2 hours and it's sat there for 5 hours, that's fine too. It's going to rise, but it's going to rise and then it's going to kind of stop. So after 2 hours, I don't know if all of you guys on the Facebook page saw my little dough ball this morning. It puffs up to be about that size. So it doesn't rise like a huge amount where it fills up the entire thing, but it does pretty much double in size, I would say. Yes, you could make this with a gluten-free dough. I would just get all-purpose gluten-free dough. The only thing that I would be a little bit weary about trying this with is with oat flour. It just turns out to be gummier. It's a gummier, sometimes when we bake with it, it has a harder time. So I would probably, if you're going to use oat flour, just be advised that that's not the preferred one. I would use whole wheat or like a gluten-free flour would work. Okay. So it poofs up to be like that. And we're gonna start with that one because that one takes just a minute. And all I did was, you can wrap it in, you know, I have press and seal that I like to use. And then I even put like a little towel over that. If you just want to put a towel over that, that's fine too. Like sometimes a wet towel over top works well. And I just, you know, I cover it, but you can put it in someplace dark to help it rise. So in here was 2 cups of a whole wheat flour. Now on your directions, I put pastry flour. Pastry flour is a little bit of a finer flour. I find that works the best, especially when you're doing like things like this. But if you can't find that, like whole wheat flour will work fine. Pastry flour is also a tiny bit lighter in color. Just when you proof it, the whole wheat flour, just whole wheat, is a little bit darker. And I have kind of both up in the back I can show you. But either or, like I went one time to the grocery store, they didn't have whole wheat pastry flour. So I just grabbed regular whole wheat and that was fine. Dry active yeast, it is a little bit less than the, let me grab my packet. So it's almost the entire packet, but it's actually a little bit less. So you do want to measure this out. It's not dumping the whole thing. Get your measuring and measure it out just as a heads up. But you can use like rapid, fast acting dry yeast, works great. You can use active yeast. This is usually how I find it in the grocery store. You want to make sure your milk is cold. It comes straight from the refrigerator, which is one of the reasons I love this recipe. Most doughs will have you do, you know, like 110 temperature for when you're adding in, so you don't kill off the yeast, but it's warm enough. This is such a great recipe because literally you don't have to do any of that. You're just pulling it from the refrigerator and adding it in, but it should be cold. Like don't let your milk sit out for hours, right? But no one's doing that anyway, I assume. There's some miso and some date paste, and that's going to help kind of activate the yeast, kind of help it rise. You're kind of feeding the yeast with that. And the date paste is just the date paste I make on our channel. I made a whole bunch of it today. So just measure out 1/3 of it. Now this recipe is not sweet really on its own. If I just made the rolls like this, you could make these for rolls for whatever dinner you're making. It's not going to taste like sweet bread. The topping that we're going to put on it really brings out that sweetness. So if you want to just make rolls, you don't have to, you know, it's not going to be weirdly sweet. You could put chives in here, rosemary, lots of different options that you could put to make these savory. The topping of the date paste and the poppy seeds really kind of makes it that sweet babulki that a lot of us that have had babulki before are used to, that taste. But like you could leave the topping off and kind of go wild with however you want to do this, right? So just keep that marked, even though I said that this is a sweetbread balls, babulki, you can take this and turn it into a million things. You can braid it and make braided bread. Trying to think, you can make it into like a little loaf and kind of make a little, quick rise bread. It'll work great. Okay. Sometimes also you could do like pumpkin seeds on top before you bake it. That's kind of nice as well for a little crunchy topping if you're just going to make it as like a tiny, tiny little loaf for you guys. Do not use date syrup. I can't guarantee that'll work. Date syrup is much thinner than date paste. A lot of the times when you go to the grocery store and you find Date Ladies date syrup, you'll just be able to tell it's very, very thin. They boil it and boil it and boil it to reduce it. So that's a great option. Like if you're looking for something for pancakes or on top of nice cream instead of like chocolate syrup, things like that. But any of our recipes that call for date paste specifically, I'm using it. It's really thick, so it'll be different. You can try it. I've never done it, but I can't guarantee it'll work. I do not have a baklava recipe. So this is babulki, very different from baklava. Baklava is a dessert recipe. I could try to do one. That's a good suggestion for the future. I think babulki is usually like a Greek recipe. All right, and so, okay, so I had that here. Now the next part where we're gonna make them into our balls and let them rise. If you don't have 30 minutes to let them rise for a second time, you can skip that. It's not gonna really make or break the recipe. I generally like to let them do it for a second time while, you can even do that while your oven's heating up. Babulki, yeah. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I haven't had one yet for baklava, but that's a really good idea. I can put that on the to-do list. Okay, so let me go over here and then we'll get to the pierogies. So make some room. All right, so I have our, I'm gonna cook this in our Breville, but I'm not air frying it. It's just on baking. And I just lined when you order the Breville, it comes with this beautiful air basket for air frying, like a really large basket. I bake with it all the time. I really don't air fry, to be honest. And I just love it because it has like curved edges. So it just works perfectly not to kind of have a mess. So I just have parchment paper on that. You can just use a regular baking sheet and line it with parchment paper. Okay. So when you get your dough, the dough is going to be, it's sticky, but it still holds up. You guys can see. And if you're going to, I like to knead it just a couple of times. I like to grab a little bit of extra flour, just as when you're working on space, when you're working with dough, just so it doesn't stick 100% when I'm rolling them out to balls in my hands. Now, when I was making this, I made this recipe on vacation with like none of my kitchen stuff. So you guys know it's easy, right? If you're able to make, I made both of these on vacation with, I made the pierogies without a rolling pin. I think I had a bottle of balsamic vinegar that I actually used for my rolling pin and it worked, use what you got. But this one you're going to roll in your hands. But when I was doing this, I was thinking, whatever size balls you make will really be however many you get out at the end of it. So if you make them really large, like the pictures I posted, you'll get, I think I have 12, 15. If you roll them really small, you can get like around 30. But I was thinking you could probably do like maybe even a Christmas tree shape, because all of these are going to touch. The balls will, the bulky balls will expand. They're going to get bigger, but they kind of nicely pull them apart when they're warm after we put on the topping. So you could make like a Christmas tree, and that would be really fancy for Christmas, right? All right. Just double check on the chat. Is everyone doing okay? Everyone can see me and hear me. You can pin me if I'm not the largest picture on your Zoom feed. That's a little trick as well. Okay, this looks good. So all I'm going to do now is I just take off like a little piece of dough and you just roll them into little balls. And I'm going to attempt to do the Christmas tree because I thought that was really cute. And you're just gonna have them touch. So a lot of the times when we make cookies or recipes, you know, you spread them out so they don't touch. This is really nice because it's kind of almost like not cheesy pull bread, but they do kind of like pull off on each other. So there's a fire truck going down my street right now. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Very loud. Hopefully everyone's okay. All right, so I'm just gonna roll them out. And try to form a little Christmas tree. All right, everyone doing okay? You know, a couple people are probably cooking alongside. A couple people are probably just watching. Either way works. Now, if you never tried bulgogi before, I don't want you to be afraid of this recipe because it's, you know, a traditional recipe. Again, you can make this savory. You do not have to put the poppy seed date mixture on top. That's just more traditional. You could definitely make these savory. It does not have to be sweet at all. Okay, no problem. These I actually were, you know, I was talking to my husband that, you know, you could freeze these, and because I'm gonna do this all again on the 24th. I was joking that like maybe I should freeze them, or yeah, the Christmas tree. I was like making the Christmas tree, or I was making them just like, you know, in a line, and then I thought you could totally do this as a Christmas tree. So I'm gonna try. Let's see. Not being me, I'm gonna try to make, you know, that art teacher mind of mine just it's like, oh, what shapes can I make out of this? How can I make this more festive? So I think it'll be really cute when it gets done. They're gonna rise a little bit more, but again, you know, however large or small you make them will be. All right, let me double check. All right, everyone looks still good in the chat. If you guys have any questions, you can jump on the mic. Don't feel shy. These cooking classes are very like, if you made a recipe like the lasagna rolls that Marcia asked about, you know, you feel free to ask. It can be membership or not. I'm happy to answer. All of you guys that are a member though, we are working on, well, I'm working on the second ebook for the weight loss one. It'll be out January 1st. And like, as long as everyone's a member, there's no like time limit. A lot of people were asking me like, oh, when do I have to order the book by to get the discount code? As long as you're a member, you guys always will have the discount code. So I will be posting a new one. The old one will get deleted and there'll be like a brand new one, but it'll be posted and emailed to you guys since you're a member. So that'll be out on New Year's, hopefully. But everything goes to plan. You know, I jam-packed my winter break. But I do have a lot of fun doing this. And it is, for me, it's way less stressful to have to worry about, you know, my other job while I'm doing this. It's nice just to be able to focus on like one thing. All right, just giving these a little, and then I can let these rest. I'll post pictures in the comments. So tonight, what I'll do is, or even before tonight, I'm gonna try to get this video uploaded and emailed to you guys. I will post pictures in that of the finished product because, you know, this is gonna sit for half an hour wrapped, let it proof again, and then I'm gonna bake it for half an hour. But the final product, you guys will see photos of it, but I'll show you guys what it looks like now. And then, you know, making the poppy seed, and I will tell you the poppy seed topping is very, very good. I just get a little bowl and mix in poppy seeds and date paste, mix it up, and then you can use a pastry brush or a spoon. On vacation, I did not have a pastry brush, so I just spooned it on and just made sure they were pretty well coated, and they're just perfect. No, the ebook will be up forever as well. So the first ebook, it'll just be volume 1 and volume 2. So if you do want to purchase volume 2, just make sure you do volume. I mean, I don't know if it'll let you. If you already have volume 1, I'm not sure if it would let you purchase volume 1 again, but just make sure you get the right one. It'll be a different color for the first page, and it'll say volume 2. Okay, so I'm thinking the Christmas tree is gonna work. Looks very cute. Again, this is just a great dough recipe. You can make these into like large dinner rolls. You can make these savory. You can, you know, lots of different ideas. You can make kind of a braided bread, I think would be really nice. All right, let's see. How many did I get? 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, because I made them a little bit smaller than last time I was on vacation for the Christmas tree. Okay, so I'm gonna scooch this down a little, show you guys, and then I'm gonna wrap this again, just like we did the first kind of way. But I'm hoping it turns out really cute. I will post pictures of like the normal way where it was just in like rows and then this way. But let me show you guys what it looks like. So you think that'll be so cute? Like a big triangle, right? I don't really proof in the Breville. I just let it proof on the countertop. I know there's a proofing button. I just never have messed with it, but you guys can kind of see. So this will get larger and then, you know, they'll be great when you serve them. I'm trying to think what you could add. If you wanted to add like a little bit of like spinach powder too and make it green, and then you could do like a green glaze. You could do that. I'm not going to, but you know. And again, if you have like, this is like so fun. I always tell people too, like just because you're whole food plant-based does not mean that your holidays have to be boring, that you just have to be eating salads, that, you know, anyone, you know, it's so nice because like you can serve really fancy stuff and it's not really that fancy because it didn't take that hard for us to do, but looks fancy. I did use, so you can use dry, active dry yeast or instant yeast, either or. Just make sure you measure out the amount. All right, and grab my press and seal. It's right behind you guys. Now I will post pictures of this. Again, we're probably not gonna have time. You know, so they only keep you guys like around an hour, but I will post pictures with the recording of how it proofed up and with the glaze and after it's baked. But I'm gonna let it sit here again for, you know, by the time I'm ready to get started on the pierogies, I can put this into the oven. So this is just gonna kind of sit on the sidelines for a little bit. I usually like to make this day of. I just think they taste a little bit fresher than like, you could freeze the dough, but it's not too hard to fit it in. It's really an easy recipe. We're gonna move into the pierogies. Now, the pierogi recipe has an awesome dough as well. You could use this dough to make pizza, calzones, apple turnovers. It can get dessert-like, right? You could fill them instead of with potatoes. It could be with you know, some kind of apple that you sauteed, and you can make little like apple desserts or little pies. So just keep that in your back of mind too. I always try anytime with our recipes, like my goal is to use that recipe and figure out as many ways to make it as versatile as possible. So you'll see a lot of similarities sometimes in different recipes. So this is, just keep this in the back pocket. You know, anytime you're trying to do like, you want to make calzones or, you know, remember, oh yeah, I have that pierogi dough recipe. That's a good one. So for this one, the only thing I did ahead of time was I boiled the potatoes just so they're ready to go for the filling. You're pretty much going to make kind of like mashed potatoes for the filling. So in the recipe, you know, I give you what I like, but you guys can always change it up to what you like and your family wants to do. And there are a million different ways to do this. So for the potatoes, I used Yukon Gold potatoes. I leave the skins on. I think they're kind of the most like buttery potato of all of them. If you don't have those, you can use russets. You can use red potatoes. You can use a sweet potato. You know, whatever you want to fill your pierogi with is your prerogative, and any potato will work. Around Easter, I'm going to hunt down purple potatoes because I think it would look beautiful to cut into a pierogi that's purple. I was thinking about that the other day. So you can do whatever you like with that. And again, I just leave the skins on, really easy. You, Okay, I was trying to read the chat. All right, that was about, I thought it's a nutritional yeast, but that was the instant yeast question. And then for the filling, like it's all up to you too. I'm going to use the miso paste because you guys know that I like a little bit of miso in our recipes. Actually, the miso you guys might have seen on our Amazon shop, I used to suggest a white miso paste. Well, I took it off of our Amazon shop because I don't know, with COVID and with shipping, it just, every time it was showing up in my door when I purchased it, it was coming spoiled and bad. So like, I don't want any of you guys to do that and go through that because they were not giving me a refund, which is very disappointing when you spend $17 on 2 packets of miso you can't use. So I stopped buying it from that seller on Amazon, but I have been trying out a couple different new ones, and some I like more, some I like others. But I haven't tried it, so I'll have to let you guys know. But I have South River made a white miso that was really nice. So I'm going to try this guy out and I'll let you know how I like it. But a little bit of white miso paste is nice. So you can add it, you don't have to, so I'm getting to. And then I have some nutritional yeast. If you don't like nutritional yeast, it won't make or break the recipe. Garlic, black pepper, and a little bit of plant milk. Which one do I not like? Trying to think of the brand name. It was a plastic tub, and now I can't remember the name of it. I haven't got it in a couple months. I used to have it on our Amazon shop. It is, I don't have it on there anymore. So hopefully you can't find the one I mentioned. Well, first of all, the package came cracked. So that was obviously like a no-no. So the plastic, like one corner was cracked, so it was open. And then like the top of it was really, really dark red. And then the bottom of it was like the normal color. So miso is generally supposed to be like that color, white miso. So if it's like really, really, really dark red and you didn't buy red miso, I would probably not eat it. So that's kind of the color. Yes, at Barbara, I believe that was the brand. But yeah, I took it off of everything, so hopefully no one's buying it. Their shipping just got awful whenever the pandemic hit. So, I mean, and this one, it was around, I think this is around $14, but it'll last me forever. And I recipe test with miso like all the time. So I'm always using it and it lasts me like months. So even though miso is a little bit expensive. Yeah, Marcia, that's exactly why I got the same exact thing happen to me, no refund, and I stopped. I pulled it as soon as I got a bad one because it just says, I don't know what's going on with them. But luckily, a lot of like Whole Foods and even some regular grocery stores are carrying miso. If you have an Asian food market near you, a lot of them carry it now. So that's really nice that you can find it. I found this at our co-op. And I do keep it refrigerated. So the one that I used to buy on Amazon came unrefrigerated. And then as soon as I opened it, I refrigerated it. This one actually, and when you buy it in most grocery stores, they're in the refrigerated section. So it's probably a best thing to keep it refrigerated. Okay. It is fermented, but I still like to err on the side of caution. All right, so let's make the filling, then we'll make the dough, then we'll put it together. So I have my Yukon Golds here. They're cooked, fork tender, what you're kind of looking for. Enough water, you guys know how to make potatoes. I'm sure you're all experienced cooks. And I just grab a potato masher. And then, you can really, like I said, you can make this however you want. We've done it with Italian seasoning before. You could do more garlic, make them really garlic heavy. You can add, we're already going to put a lot of onion in this, but you could put onion, it's really up to you. You could make them with red pepper flakes and make them a little bit spicy. Totally up to you. Oh, and I will say for the dough, if you're cooking alongside with me, you can make your flax egg now. There's 1 flax egg, a tablespoon of flax mixed with 3 tablespoons of water, which I did before class. It gels up really nice. You need that for the dough. So anyone that's doing this with me, you could do that now. By the time we get to it, it should be good to go. All right, So I have so I like to do just a little bit of plant milk. I made a little bit more than I need for the filling today because I like leftover mashed potatoes. So you can always make more. And then I'm gonna add in our seasonings, and this is gonna be awesome. If you're using a different potato besides Yukon Gold, you may want to remove the skins because some of them get a little bit harder, like these russet potatoes. It just really depends on who you're making this for. I don't care about skins of potatoes. I'll eat whatever, even like sweet potatoes, I would just like chop up the skins in it. But if you're making this for like family or somebody who's not plant-based and might not be used to it, you know, if you're using something besides Yukon Golds, you might want to remove the skins. I like extra fiber in everything I can fit it in at, so, and it's less work. So most times when it's just me and my husband, I just, you know, leave everything on. So we're pretty much just making mashed potatoes. Again, you can, anything that doesn't fit into your pierogies, if you have leftovers, you have some nice mashed potatoes left over, you can make potato pancakes. We have a video on our website for that. That's great to do with leftover mashed potatoes as well. Another Slovak little thing I'm gonna say. And then again, seasoning it with what you like. So I do have some nutritional yeast that I'm gonna add. Yeah, pizza crust, calzones. I mean, my goal is to make this as versatile for whatever you want to use. So I always tell people, like, people usually tell me like, well, I'm not in the membership. And I'm like, well, there's like lots of little nuggets. And then I give you 5 recipes, but really you can turn them into like, we could double those recipes, right? Because you can make a lot of things happen. I try to keep everything as versatile as possible. So a little bit of nutritional yeast. I like it. It's extra B vitamins. You can leave it out. Sometimes I forgot it. Just depends. I have a little bit of garlic powder. You could use minced garlic if you want a little bit stronger. If you don't have minced garlic, you could just use the powder. Whatever you have. I like a little bit of black pepper in ours. You could do paprika if you want, you know, you can play around with it. Try to get it. And then I'm going to put a little bit of miso that I have here. And miso is our salt substitute. Now, I struggled with hypertension before being plant-based, and it was like pretty significant where I was on 2 different blood pressure medicines. Those of you guys that have heard my story. And, you know, I use miso in a lot of our recipes. It's still pretty mild because these make, you know, I can sit down and eat all of this myself. So you are spreading it out with lots of servings, but I have not seen it affect my blood pressure at all. So sometimes people just tell me it's not SOS technically, just like dates technically have sugar in them. You know, it's good to use the more natural way. So I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of white miso paste for this. The miso paste, you just really want to make sure you take a moment and mash your potatoes because it's not so great if you get a big gulp of miso. You know, it needs to be kind of spread out. So I'm just going to take a moment and really get that mini arm workout while you make sure it gets spread out. All right, at the same time, you do need some boiling water for this recipe. So while you're doing this, you could be boiling water. So I have a tea kettle I'm just going to turn on so that we can use that for this recipe. Because I love this recipe. The dough is really like 4 ingredients, super easy, but it does just have a little bit of boiling water. Which is, I feel like both of these dough recipes were very different, but very cool because it uses not conventional kind of aspects when you look for your dough. Okay, I'm just reading through. Green onions would be good, yes. I like chives too. You could do, trying to think, some people like more like pizza flavored pierogies, like Italian. We love Italian seasoning. It goes on a lot of stuff. So that could be really good. You could separate it and make different flavored pierogies. So it's really easy now to do the filling. So you could, you know, have some that are one way, some that are another way, and just kind of, you know, make some surprise pierogies with what you're gonna get, but that could be fun. All right, looks like it's, so I'll show you guys what it looks like. Again, I definitely made like more because we're gonna have leftovers of it because I really like mashed potatoes, but all incorporated, just looks like mashed potatoes. I think I missed one question. Let me see. Can you make a big batch of the dough, freeze portions? Yes, you definitely can make the dough. You can freeze it and just pull it out just like you would do regular pizza dough. Okay, so I'm gonna set this aside. This while we make our dough. So that's just gonna hang out over there. I have 2 cups of whole wheat pastry flour. Again, you could use gluten-free flour, you can use whole wheat regular flour. If you see whole wheat pastry flour, grab it and do like it a little bit more. It's just finer. It's not really gonna, you know, but that's what's in here. I'm gonna add a little bit of miso paste to this. So it's 2 teaspoons. So don't put it away just yet. That's gonna add a little bit of flavor to your dough. So if you don't have it, the miso you can leave out. It wouldn't make or break anything, but it does help. And again, you can also add seasonings to the dough now. So one way to elevate your pizza crust, if you're not making pierogies or calzones or stuff like that, is to add, you know, you can add garlic powder, onion powder. You can flavor this. So that's another good idea to make it even more really, really flavorful. So we do that all the time. Like back in the day when we used to get like stuffed crust pizzas or stuff like that, you know, like instead of doing that aspect of it, you know, you can really make it really flavorful by putting chives or different things in. So keep that in mind. Yeah. All right. Everyone's still doing okay. Just checking on the chat. All right. And again, I made this on vacation, so it's easy. Like you can make it. Doesn't have to. I'm going to show you guys what I used to cut out our pierogi dough. And I told you kind of what I did for the. I used a bottle. I bought a bottle of balsamic vinegar on vacation because that's what I like to use for my dressings, and I literally use this as my rolling pin. So you can kind of make whatever you have. You can make work. All right, my water is boiling. I have my flax egg. When you let your flax egg sit, it should get nice and gelled up. That's what we're looking for. 1 flax egg goes in. The boiling water kind of helps to obviously pull it all together and acts as the glue, but it also helps to kind of diminish how dark this color is. Because when you make a dough, like, you know, you really can tell where the flax is. It kind of helps to spread it out. So keep that in mind. It's not going to look like that when we get to finish it. All right, so it's 2/3 cups of boiling water. Let me grab a measuring cup. Found one. As we get closer to April, it'll be really funny to see how thinned out our kitchen gets because we're starting to pack up stuff, and like I'm trying to get the kitchen to be like the last bit so I can use it up to the very moment, but they'll start getting very minimal. Yeah, I always just do 1 tablespoon of flax mixed with 3 tablespoons of water, and then you can kind of what I usually do is just get a fork and kind of just make sure everything's like wet, and then if you let it sit, it should gel up. And doesn't sit as long. I mean, I would let it sit for around 10 minutes. I'm sure it'll be okay. Sometimes I've rushed it. So if you don't have time, you know, it should be all right. So this guy is boiling. So be really careful, don't burn yourself. 2/3. I love this kettle because it's like really nice spout. That's gonna kind of be the glue. Put this back. I'm gonna grab a rubber spatula. Yeah, be careful with the boiling water. You can put it in the directions. All right, so we're just gonna mix everything to be well incorporated, and then we're gonna use our hands. It's gonna kind of look like it's not, like there's not enough liquid, but as soon as we start using our hands to incorporate it, it comes together. So it'll start the really quick dough as I'm filling in pieces. All right, looks good. All right, let me show you guys what it looks like before I knead it. And then, you know, we want to have a clean working space because we're going to roll out our dough, but just keep this recipe in the back of your mind for like a million other ones. We really like calzones, and I made a calzone recipe a few years ago for an Italian cooking class I did. This dough is better, so I definitely suggest using this one. So you'll see it looks like crummy. Do you guys see that? All right, but I'm going to take my hands and I'm just going to kind of push everything together and just start kneading it. So just, you know, this is really fun too. I always tell people it's a little warm, so, you know, be careful. Maybe let it sit for a second if it's too hot to touch. Sometimes I feel like my hands are, I feel like as you cook, it's like your hands can handle anything, right? Because you usually grab stuff out of the oven when it's way too hot. So wait till it's good for you. And then I just keep doing it until all the pieces are kind of sticking together. So it just takes a moment. Again, another little mini arm workout. If you have little ones, definitely make sure it's cool enough for them to start this part, but this can be really fun to get them involved. Because it's like a sticky dough, but it's not crazy sticky. So it's not like gonna make a huge mess compared to some of the other pizza dough recipes I've tried. It's a really nice consistency. All right, everyone's still doing okay. Any questions? Really happy 41 people joined today. I didn't know, well, first when we started, there was only 3 people in here. So I'm really happy so many of you guys could join us. I almost made an announcement that if you wear a Christmas sweater or holiday sweater, we were gonna have like a little contest. I've done that. Last year we did a cookie class where I did that, but I think this year just kind of caught up with me with school and everything. Trying to make sure it's not. I believe I put the tea kettle on our Amazon shop. We got, if not, I can. We just got off of Amazon. I'm not sure of the brand off the top of my head, but we've had it for about 6 months now and have really liked it. So I can let you know. Or if you Facebook message me or email me, and I can, if it's not in there, I can send it to you. Really nice and precise, which is really nice, especially when you're doing stuff like this. All right, so this looks good. Doesn't take long to become a dough. Check, guys. And you can see that it looks kind of similar to the last dough we did, but the flax and everything is like nicely incorporated where it doesn't look weird. So you guys can see. So it's nice dough. Now I do add, you know, like a little extra flour just for when we're rolling it out. So I'm just gonna rinse my hands real quick. Now again, if I was gonna do this for pizza, I would probably add Italian seasoning or pizza seasoning to that, or chives or something, and then you can roll out your pizza, or calzones. If you want to make apple turnovers, it's kind of the same way as pierogi is. Depending on how large you cut out your shapes, how will be how many you get. But you could make some kind of like pie filling and make little turnovers. I'm probably going to make a recipe for that in the future. That was, I think it'll turn out great for that as well. I chopped up a red onion. I'm going to talk about the boiling, frying, like broil method. I think is the best for pierogies, especially when you're doing it no oil. So that way it's not soggy or anything like that. But there is a little bit of there's like a 3-part series to getting them nice like regular pierogies before being plant-based would have been. All right, so let me roll this out. Now, I was on vacation and like I said, I didn't have a rolling pin, wasn't home, but we wanted to make pierogies. So I just used a balsamic vinegar bottle. So you could do that. Another option you can do is obviously use a rolling pin, but anything like that, you know, to roll out will be great. And then what I also like to do is when you cut out the shapes, because I didn't have a biscuit cutter or anything like that, I used a glass, like a glass topping, like top rim. So I just cut out my round pierogi shapes with a glass, and that worked great. So, you know, if you don't have a biscuit cutter, you can just use whatever size glass you want will be the size or oval or shape, you know, if you make them. Okay. Yeah, so my grandma, I saw in the chat, my grandma is from the Czech Republic, and she came over to the United States when she was in her 20s, and met my grandfather, who was Slovenian. And so we, you know, it was to the point where they could talk. They used to talk in the language whenever I was little, like my mom and my aunt knew, so they always like talked so I wouldn't understand them. About different stuff, you know, I wasn't allowed to hear, but we always had a Christmas Eve was especially, we always had this. So we had mushroom soup every Christmas Eve. So if you had that, we called it sour soup growing up because there's sauerkraut in it, which, you know, that might sound weird to people that have not tried it, believe me. And also I hated mushrooms, but I loved this mushroom soup, the sour soup. It was like the only time I ate mushrooms my entire life growing up was for the soup. And my grandma would take mushrooms starting right after New Year's, and she would dry them out herself. Like you'd go over to her house closer to Christmas, and there would just be like her table, everything was covered in dried mushrooms for the soup. So try our mushroom soup recipe. It's based off of my grandma's version. I think it tastes pretty close. You know, hers is not vegan or anything like that. So I had to make my own version when we went plant-based to bring to Christmas Eve. So we had that Christmas Eve. We had multiple different people in our family bring different versions of the bulky. So, you know, my aunt would bring one, there'd be a different version. So you usually would have the bulky in your sour soup. You know, you'd put like the little bread in there, depending on how big they were. And then, you know, that was pretty much our main meal that we had growing up. And then we also did like the garlic and there was plaki with honey and different traditions. So I'm very much grew up that was my Christmas Eve every year. So we wanted to make some of those traditions. The cream of the mushroom soup. I think it's just I forget the name of it now. If I just called it mushroom soup or cream of mushroom, but whichever one it is, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I used to beg my grandparents to teach me. So we would have my grandfather passed when I was pretty young, but I would have like notebooks of like words, and I could say like a couple things. So that I thought I was like, you know, speaking the language, but I could really only say like dog, and I could say I love you, and I used to have a nickname. My pap used to call my mom Klepatachka, which means like talker, like you talk too much almost, like a nickname. And then I was little Klepatachka because I was the little version that talked too much. And then there was other things for like troublemaker and little pet things. So very near and dear to my heart. So I always try to, you know, continue some of those family traditions. I know a lot of people see Jerudi and think, or I don't know if they're aware, but that's that's my husband's name, and they're Syrian, Lebanese Syrian. So, but my family is like a mix of Irish and Slovenian. It's a little bit different in the traditions, but I try to blend. It's all blended now. All right, so you'll see that this dough, like it rolls out really, really nice. I don't know if the camera is picking this up, but it is a beautiful dough. Again, get your calzones, your apple turnovers, your pierogies ready. And you know, I just try to take it to where it's even. You do not have to be Martha Stewart. You don't have to know 100% how to bake, but just try to make sure it's even when you go to cut them. And you know, that's the main. And then if it's sticking, you could just add flour to your surface. It shouldn't really stick. So if you're having stickage, you know, you don't want to make them too thin because they still have to hold the weight of the pierogi. But so I'm gonna show you guys my cut method. I do have a biscuit cutter, but thank you. That's very nice of you. But I'm just gonna go ahead and cut my pierogies. So I just turn it with my cup, and then it's like a cookie cutter, right? So you don't have to have anything fancy to do this. You can make them bigger or smaller. That is like the perfect shape. And then just like when you guys make cookies or anything with dough, you roll it up, roll it out again, get as many as possible. That's kind of the goal. To get a bunch of these shapes ready. So while I do this, because we're running a little bit late on time, so once I fill the pierogies and seal them, I like to do this kind of 3 method of cooking them. I will boil water and boil the pierogies. Now I usually do like, depends on how big your pot is, but I find that if you do maybe like 6 at a time, that's a good size. And you're just gonna boil them until they float, and then you can drain them and that part's done, to remove them from the water. Don't let them sit in there too long, go with the next step. It's kind of, you're on a little rotation of batching. After they've boiled, what I like to do is or while they're boiling, water saute a bunch of onions, like the largest onion maybe you can find is how I like to do it. So I water saute until they get nice and brown. And one way that you can make them like really caramelized is go a little bit shy on the water. So you can add like drops of water as we saute, get your pan really hot, add your onion in. And I like to dice them kind of like length, like long-wise instead of chopped. It doesn't really matter, but if you want to, however you want to do it, you know, almost get to the point where there's no water in there and they start to get kind of caramelized, then you can kind of deglaze your pan and you kind of keep going until they're as brown as you want them. So then what I do is don't add your pierogies straight into this pan. They will stick like crazy because there's no oil. So we're literally just using the saute pan to saute the onions, and then you're not doing anything with the pierogies. We're going to move them to a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. You're going to put all your boiled pierogies that you have on your baking sheet. You're going to put the onions that you've caramelized on top, and you're going to broil for like 3 to 4 minutes. Now, when I say broil, I mean hawk watch your oven, because it's really easy to go from broil to burn, because we're just kind of drying out the part of it that's touching the parchment paper and then the top, just to get it nice and brown, like you sauteed it on a pan. We're kind of tricking it, so we're not sticking, so you're not ruining your pierogies, and also it's really easy and quick. So I suggest that method of going about it. I feel like I've tried it always. It's the best, I promise. You can just boil them and serve them that way. They won't be as crispy on the top and bottom as you're probably familiar when you go out to purchase pierogies that have been fried in oil. So the broiling method kind of gives you a little bit of that, because we're kind of heating it at high temperatures, okay? Does that make sense? Okay. All right. And, you know, if I was going to make these into apple turnovers or something with a fruit filling, you know, I probably would just bake them, right? You probably would not. I'm going to mess around with that recipe and I'll get it to you guys eventually, but that would be a little bit different of a process. Same with like a calzone, right? You're not going to boil a calzone with the filling. You would just bake it. So only because they're pierogies are we. All right, so I'm going to I won't take up your time too much. So there's a couple different ways you can go about doing this part. Let's pretend I wrote all this out, which I'm going to do after I get you guys out of class. You have your rounds. Now you can take, you can take your hand and maybe like just push it out a little bit. You can take a rolling pin and just give it a little, I'm going to make a little bit of extra room so I have my filling. That's kind of up to you if you want to kind of pre-make it, which is kind of nice. And then what I do is I take just a little bit of the filling, just like, just a little ball of the filling. Just, it's the same as if you would do non-whole food plant-based pierogies, right? A little bit of the filling. Then you can shove it down like a taco. And then you can take your fingers and pinch, and you make those little pierogi classic style, and you're just sealing it. So if you have some that comes out at the end, you can kind of push it back in. It's really like easy. And then you just take it and seal it. You just go all the way around. I usually will just like make sure, because you don't want to have any pockets. That's a no-no, because we're going to boil them. Should you, so if you're gonna boil them, you can boil them and broil them later if you want. That's up to you. You could, you just don't, if you stopped at this point, the dough might become a little dried out. Usually I'm always kind of like actively doing this. So I'm not 100% sure on that. You could freeze them and then boil them. I've done that. But I'm not sure if you, it's probably what I would do. If you're gonna make them the same day, it probably is okay. But if you're gonna make them like, usually I freeze them. You guys can see.
I'll just talk on
yeah, go ahead.
Instead of typing. But so if you were to try and do like boiling them and do that part, but didn't want to actually do the broiling or the baking part until like the next day, or would they stick together like if you tried to store them after they were boiled?
Yeah, I would definitely, if you're going to store them, they definitely need to go in parchment paper, like separated, not sticking, because they probably will stick together. But if I was going to do this, I probably would just keep the dough separate, wrap the dough and then just assemble it the day of, unless you're going to freeze it. And then you could get all of these out and then freeze them, but you still want to line them with parchment paper in between each level so they don't stick.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, she made them for the first time. Awesome. Yeah, and the method of boiling and broiling, very hard to say, is the best. And I think that the caramelized onions like take it to a whole another level. So if you love onions, it's great. I have not messed around too much with pizza. I know it'll work, but I will try it and let you guys know. So it'll just depend on, what you put on it. So I would roll this out to pizza, and I would put, my sauce, whatever toppings I would want. And I would try maybe 15 minutes at 350 to 375 and kind of see how it is then. That's going to be my first go at it. So you just keep going until they're all filled. You can make them as small as you want. If you don't want to roll them out, you can make them smaller. It does not have to be. Sometimes these are like too big for people. So you can make a little version. It doesn't matter. They taste the same, I promise. So however you want to do it. And then that would be that recipe. So again, I will like take photos of all this and I will mail it out with the email. All right. So let me show you the bulky, because it's been sitting for probably longer than 30 minutes. I haven't baked it yet. Like I said, it just did the second proof. So it raised a little bit more. You guys can see. It almost reminds me of monkey bread. So I'm also going to try a recipe for monkey bread with this. So don't be surprised if you see some version of this down the road to turn out like that. But I think this would, because it just pulls apart really fun. So, all right, I'm going to put this in the oven. I'm going to work on this. I will take photos of all of this and email it out to you guys tonight so you can see what the final version comes. But this is exactly what I'm going to do for Christmas. Thanksgiving, a lot of people ask like the different varieties of it. So again, I'll do this with the bulky with sour soup. I'll make a big holiday salad, I'll probably put pomegranates and Brussels sprouts in there that are shaved. That's what I like to do. For Thanksgiving, though, we did kind of like a lentil loaf, mashed potato stuffing, you know, that kind of thing. Another option too is that you could do our lasagna is a great winter Christmas dinner. We have so many soups. We are going to do our dumpling stew tomorrow. I think tomorrow or Monday it'll come out on YouTube, but you guys already have access to that recipe because it's from last month. That is really good too. So that could be another contender for Christmas even. We just had it yesterday for dinner and it's really amazing. Okay, just reading it now. I made the sweet potato flatbread and filled them. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never tried it with that dough, but that's cool that that works too. Yeah, kind of similar to pierogies. Pierogies are just usually dough and potato. That's very cool. Glad you tried that out. Before I let you guys go, if you guys had fun today, even if you just watched, or if you've been enjoying the membership, if you don't mind posting in our Facebook page, you know, that you are getting a lot of value out of the membership, or, you know, different parts of it that you enjoy. If you made a holiday postcard that we had, that was kind of, you know, fun. If you've tried any of the recipes from any of the months from the membership that you enjoy, it's just kind of nice. I think some people don't realize all that's in the membership, and I do try to like pack it as much as humanly possible. So I really appreciate that. If you do make the recipes at any time, now till forever. I love seeing photographs of them and what you guys make. You guys do such a beautiful job on all of our recipes. It's just so fun for me to sit back and watch you guys. I will send this out tonight, probably before tonight, probably in the next couple hours or so once I get these all done. And I hope you guys had fun. If you have any questions, like it's 3 weeks from now and you have a question about the pierogies, just email me and I will get back to you. I'm here to help and kind of troubleshoot any issue you have with it, with anything that we have going on. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being a member. It really means the world to me. And I have so much fun with these. And I'm so happy to see that we had around like 40-ish people spend your Saturday with me a little bit. So I hope you guys enjoy the recipe. Have a beautiful holiday. And I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you guys. And I will email you, like I said, I'll take lots of photos.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Have fun making all the recipes.
I will.
Bye.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about Brussels sprouts? Because I've never made them where I liked them.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking I'm going to make a salad for Christmas. My family is not whole food plant-based, and I'm not 100% myself either, but, you know, really trying to get recipes. So with the shaved Brussels sprouts, are they raw? And
Yeah.
like how?
So I feel you on that. I also like mushrooms were like my nemesis, but then like Brussels sprouts weren't that far behind.
Yeah.
I never liked them growing up. It was like one of those foods I think I was like forced to eat. I would just sit there and look at it forever. I find that a lot of the times people that don't like Brussels sprouts have had them like overcooked that are really gross.
Mhm.
Having them raw is amazing. So you can just take a Brussels sprout. I have a bunch in my fridge right now. You can take a knife, cut off the little nub part, and just like finely or chop them up. You also could put them into a food processor shaver, just like if you did like carrots. If your food processor has that, that's easy. And you can buy them at the store already shaved. I like Trader Joe's sells bags of like shaved Brussels sprouts. It just really tastes like cabbage.
Okay.
More crunchy, not really Brussels sprout taste that we think of. And it's a great way, it's a cruciferous vegetable. So it's a great way to like sneak it in. We also have a recipe in the files section of our Facebook group. And I think it's called like the best Brussels sprout ever. It's probably towards the bottom. It's an older one, but it's taking Brussels sprouts. And what I do when I want to bake them is I cut off the bottom part. I add them to a big like Ziploc bag, and I add balsamic vinegar of your choice that you like, and a squeeze of Dijon mustard, and you
Mhm.
just like massage them in
Mhm.
and bake them, and they're like caramelized and beautiful, not gross and like what we think of Brussels sprouts. So
Yeah.
either one could work. You could try it, but the shaved Brussels sprouts are my favorite way of getting them in, and it's just raw. It, you know, I just mix it in. I'll put like a bunch of different greens in my salad, and I just take in like a cup of Brussels sprouts that have been shaved, mix it all together, and it really just tastes like cabbage that you put in there.
Yeah, because I was thinking of like that one with the pomegranate
Yeah,
that you did at Thanksgiving time.
yeah.
And but I'm like, I don't know, because I don't like them. My sister, who hates every vegetable, that's the only vegetable she likes. And I'm like, I don't know what you see in that.
So you could, what I would probably do with that case is I probably would make the salad and then just put like, make some shaved Brussels sprouts, but just keep them in a separate bowl. And then just have people like put it almost as a topping.
Yeah,
So you can kind of pick how much you want in yours. And
Yeah.
then that's a good way of easing into it where it's not like, you know, if
Yeah.
you, but if you like cabbage, like if you like red cabbage or anything that's diced up, it's pretty much the same. They're like little green cabbage taste
Yeah.
when they're shaved.
good. Thank you, Britt.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I hope you guys all have I'm here if you guys have any other questions. That's also like, feel free to ask them. I'm just going to be making pierogies for a little bit. But you guys are free to go if you don't have any questions, or, you know, if anyone does. Thank you, Barbara. You guys have a nice Christmas as well.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thank you guys for coming.
Merry Christmas.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording so that way it gets uploaded before tonight.